Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's time for the final hour of Mainframe Comic-Con. This is John Siuntres from the Word Balloon Podcast. Thank you all for an incredible weekend. Amazing questions, fantastic conversation, and truly, I'm very excited to close things out with one of the best, the panels that we put together. It was 10 years ago that we celebrated the 10th anniversary of Powers at Baltimore Comic-Con, and I was pleased that Mike and Brian chose me to moderate the panel. It was an easy conversation because these guys have been my friends at that time already for a couple of years, and now another 10 as we celebrate the 20th anniversary and the curtain call for Powers, the best ever, the graphic novel. Brian Bendis will be joining us shortly, but in the meantime, it's great to welcome the co-creator of Powers, the co-plotter and co-writer at times as well. It's Mike Avon Oeming. It's great to see you, Mike.
Hey, John. How's it going, man?
It's going great, buddy. Seriously, thank you very much for doing this. It's been an incredible ride with the con this weekend, but also, my God, 20 years of Powers. And really, Mike, how long, because you're the guy that's doing the heavy lifting, how long did it take to really come up with, draw the book and really think it out with Brian?
It happened pretty quickly. Really early on, Brian and I just bounced back some ideas back and forth. I think I just drew Walker and Dina, and they both had dark hair. So Brian was kind of like a little too much like brother and sister. So then I changed one to blonde hair. And pretty much right from there, those were kind of the only designs or forethought that we really put into the book at the time. So we just went right into the script. But we kind of had a warm up thing with there was the Comic Shop News paper where we had Powers running in a short sort of prequel story in that newspaper as like an ad kind of thing, right? So that was sort of our practice story, and then we did the first issue.
Okay, and welcome Brian Bendis to the conversation. Good to see you, buddy.
I don't know why it took me 45 minutes to log into this damn thing. It took 2 seconds yesterday, so I apologize. I've been sitting here arguing with Facebook. Hi.
No problem. Good to see you, man. Absolutely. And
you must be exhausted. You have been broadcasting like Jerry Lewis at the NBA telethon.
Oh yeah.
Really, like my feed is just full of notices of you. So what were the highlights? What I was dabbling in and out. I didn't get to see everything.
Well, the last hour we had the Kingdom Come voiceover theater with George.
Which you were excited about.
And Susan, I know. I talked your ear off about it, and it delivered all these great and truly, Brian, you were part of it as well, doing it on Friday. These great creator to creator conversations.
I love those. I every time you guys were thanking me, I was like, no, it's my favorite thing to do. It is. I feel the best use of us, and it reminds me of when Interview Magazine, I think Andy Warhol was the first person to just put people together and have them interview each other to see if what would come out, and it felt like that to me. I love it.
Well, and that's again, I was really inspired by the live programming that Baltimore has done for years, where you really would just see creator to creator, and also things like San Diego. I mean, God, I remember Wade interviewing Russ Heath. And just being blown away. But my favorite, and it was at my first San Diego, was seeing Arnold Drake interview Jose Luis Garcia Lopez.
Oh,
and I'm so glad I got to see that.
I must say, I'm more as time goes on, and I've been doing research and some historical stuff. It's a bummer what isn't filmed. A lot of this stuff was just taken for granted at the time, and now I feel, don't you wish we filmed every Jack Kirby panel? Why wasn't all of those filmed, And if anything, I was thinking about how we will, as garbage as 2020 is for everything and everyone and every concept, including the comic book business, at least we're going to have an outstanding record of it. So we'll have a lot of conversation about it online, recorded forever. So that's cool.
And everybody's taking advantage of that in the best way. Of having these incredible new form of entertainment conversations. Although, as you pointed out years ago, Brian, and I was going to say in terms of the things from the past that we wish people had recorded, well that Will Eisner's Shop Talk
Yes.
was transcribed as a book. But thank God the cassettes still exist.
Mm-hmm.
And that amazing Tomorrow's documentary about Eisner, the
Yep.
bonus features are like 10 or a dozen Eisner conversations with Kirby and Phil Suling about the direct market and the first comic conventions that he was involved with, and Milton Caniff, and all these great amazing creators. So thank God. And also the Comics Journal, I don't know where they sit in their archives, but on their website, God, they had some amazing panels of Gil Kane and R. Crumb talking to each other and stuff like that. So again, they're few and far between, but there are some artifacts of those times, and thank God.
Well, I don't want to talk about even like our stuff. Like, I wish we would have like kept more stuff in the '90s. You know what I mean? Not to and also, but you're right. If anyone gets a chance, the Will Eisner Shop Talk is a great book. It's also like, oh, Will Eisner invented the podcast on top of everything else. It didn't have a name then, but if you listen to it, it's this podcast by him, and for those of you who don't know, I quoted generously in cover that story about Jack Kirby and the magic pencil. It's from Will Eisner's Shop Talk. He actually describes that story to Will Eisner about how people always come up to him and go, "What pencil do you use?" As if that's all you need to draw like Jack Kirby is the right pencil. And his line of "It's not a magic pencil." So.
Mike, I know that Brian was certainly inspired by things like Fantagraphics' amazing stories back in the 80s, and all the amazing interviews and stuff. Were you reading that stuff too?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You were published in there too, right?
What was that?
You were published in there too, in the Amazing Heroes.
Oh, did you remember where I had my very, very first fan art? It was like
Me
some
too.
thing. If you find in the back of the letters pages, you'll see those little 2-inch high things, and I think Swamp Thing, and I did a couple others. Those are like my very first printed things.
Yeah.
And they paid you, right? Like, didn't you get like a little money?
No, those are just
no.
I think it was like $50 or something, because I remember it came with such a genuine thrill of you didn't feel
I'm
like
pulling a chef here. Give me a second.
Sure, no problem. But I remember it made me feel like a professional. Like I was like I'm there, I'm printed in a book, and Brian Boland's on the cover. I must be a professional person, right? And even though I'm I literally was using like international male magazine models as like my for whatever I was drawing back then,
And it was such a great magazine, especially because it things are so curated now. Or they've been curated for a long time, but you picked up like Amazing Heroes, it would have an X-Men story right next to some the beginning of the Crow before anybody knew who it was, and some stuff like that.
That's right.
It had everything in that book, and when I was first reading comics, it was such a great way to learn about what was going on in the industry, and that was some of my first exposures to even and seeing ads to stuff like First Comics.
Right.
All the other stuff I wasn't seeing. It was this window into everything else. That was an awesome magazine for sure.
It had more content than most. It was just right in the middle of Buyer's Guide and Comics Journal. It was right in the middle there.
Right, so, from a sensibility standpoint, absolutely, and also it was. I mean, these great in-depth interviews of what was going on in the creators' heads at the moment while they were making these books. Incredible looks at Dark Knight and Watchmen, but everything. And truly one of the inspirations for my show, Word Balloon, was loving those magazines and Rolling Stone interviews and Playboy interviews and the great music magazine Musician that would have really great in-depth stuff of how songs and albums were made. So that's kind of where my inspiration for doing what I do for my show and doing panels like this.
Yeah, but a lot of us got our first published work in Amazing Heroes letter column. It's all garbage, but it just to see your lines printed is an enormous education. It's hard to describe. You can look at the piece 100 times. I mean, everyone's different, but me and a lot of our friends, once you see it printed, you see it for real. You're not seeing it right until you see it printed, and
also. It was my first time seeing my art at a different size.
Yeah.
This was 1980 something. So there wasn't photocopy machines around all over the place where you can just scan your art and see what it looks like smaller. You just saw it at the size you drew it, especially living in a small town. There was no thing. There was no place to go. You know what I mean? There was no resources for any of that stuff. So like, yeah, that was the first time you saw lines like, oh, and you see everything disappear, and you know how lines hold up and they don't hold up and stuff. And yeah, you feel like you're in the real world suddenly.
There's two kinds of people listening to this right now. Some people going, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and people going, man, they are way older than we thought. Man, 80s. You should like my kids sometimes gather around me when I start talking about the 90s, like it's like the Great Depression or something. It's hilarious.
I mean, honestly, man, it's and I've told you guys this before. Like, I'll see a band that I loved from the '80s, and they'll put out something new. Like Brian, you were showing me, the Go-Go's little Zoom reunion while they're singing "We Got the Beat." And as I was telling Brian, I'm like, yeah, I saw them open for the Police in 1982. And it's like, oh my God, that was 38 years ago. And I'm like, literally, I remember my father being the same way in the 80s, like, oh yeah, when I saw Benny Goodman in the 40s, that was amazing. And it's like, oh my God, I'm my father. What happened?
But Belinda Carlisle is 62 years old. She looks amazing.
Oh my God.
I'm like, wait a second, I'm not young. And she's older than me. How old? Yeah. It was amazing.
And incredible.
You don't know, the Go-Go's documentary on Showtime is what we're talking about. It's a brand new documentary. It's actually better than the Beastie Boys documentary as far as content goes, because the Beastie Boys one's very good, and I'm very grateful that it exists in the world. But Spike Jonze, who was there for every second of it, directed it, so he's like, it's too in, right? Whereas the Go-Go's had a big breakup, and they got back together, which is very rare. And so because they're at that place, they were able to discuss them more honestly, and I loved it. It was filled with stuff I didn't know.
Well, and they lived that rock and roll lifestyle. I mean, again, when the videos were coming out, we thought they were, the precursor to the Spice Girls. And just, aren't they cute? They're having fun. And it's like, yeah, they're having rock and roll fun, everybody. Everything you thought Leonard Skinner and Van Halen were doing, yeah, the Go-Go's were doing it as well.
That's right. No, but my favorite part of that documentary is when one of them goes to get their check, and they saw the bass guitarist's check was 90 times bigger than her check. And they go, why is her check bigger than my check? She wrote the song. And that was it. And that broke up the band. That was it. That all went to hell. Yeah.
Oh, man. Spoiler. Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
So, and truly, I mentioned the Spice Girls. I mean, that's kind of the moment where Powers kind of hit the atmosphere. And the great thing,
a big influence on us in this Spice Girls.
Walker, very, very posh Spice when you think about it, really. But
because we're in the Powers all week long. The woman who was hosting the last debate is named Kristen Welker, and everyone was pronouncing Christian Walker on TV, freaking me out. They were listening to this slightly gently mispronouncing with like a Canadian accent. It sounds like Christian Walker.
So that's hilarious. That's fantastic.
So I appreciate all the promotion.
Well, I was going to point out again, and it's something we've talked about when we talk about Powers. This was really the beginnings of social media, and also I think this generation, the younger readers, might take for granted the idea of a police procedural in a superpowered world. But you guys kind of were there first. And I mean,
we were. I was surprised by it. There have been other, procedurals in other like cop stories in comics, obviously. But there hadn't been a straightforward like homicide book in a world of superheroes. But there have been like, I do not take away the fact that Commissioner Gordon was solving homicides in a superhero world every time, but from the perspective of the detectives and allowing us a fresh take on superheroes. And I remember when we started it, I would literally walk around the comic store going, someone must have done this before us. Like I'm clearly this low-hanging fruit isn't just laying here. But it was, and also I'm a big crime comic fan, so I just went back in to make sure that I wasn't like remembering someone else's idea, And then while we were in production, Alan Moore had announced top 10, and remember, and that's Alan Moore post Watchmen, and I'm like, oh, that's it, we're done, we're out. We're smushed, and that's fine. That's the way it should be, but. Was so grateful when the book came out. It was nothing like, it was not at all what Powers is. And I was like, oh, great. We get to be like a a compare and contrast kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then about a year later, and we had pitched Powers to DC. They didn't want it. And then a year later, where our book was out and successful, and then we heard like they're going to do Gotham Central. Like they called us and said, it was Ed and Greg, like old friends, and I'm like, yeah, it sounds great. But it was like the biggest win me and Mike had ever had. They had rejected this idea and now wanted their own powers in the DC universe. I'm like, oh, well, that's a win, right? Isn't that as close as you can get? So other than them actually publishing it, and now they are.
We did get to keep our rights, though.
Yeah, you did get to do what, buddy?
We did get to keep our rights, though.
Yes, we did. And so yeah, we were just very, very lucky. And after, and also Powers came out in an X-Files was big at the time too. So there were a lot of like books like X-Files that would come out afterwards that were like, X-Files with superheroes and stuff like that. But we were grateful we had found our place in the comic book sphere. Very grateful, actually.
Sure. And also, again, you guys represented that second wave of Image. There was the original guys, but it was like, you guys were part, like I said, you guys and a couple of years later, Kirkman with Walking Dead, but it really did seem like, like I said, the second wave. And again, as you say, that it's a creator-owned book, it gave you guys opportunities beyond the DC universe to tell different stories, to break some eggs along the way and get really gritty with the indulgences potentially of having superpowers.
It wouldn't have worked as a DC book. It would have been interesting. It would have had its moments, but what people like about Powers would not have been. There would have been no mythology building. The hard R would not have been there. Even if it was for adults, it wouldn't have gone as. We there are years there where you can tell me and Mike were like, how far can we push this? And that's Yeah, still my greatest memory is I think the only argument we've ever had over Powers was the size of the Devil's schlong. And,
it was the amount of schlong, I think, because
he drew us. I wrote. Again, this was at a time in the book where I knew I had to write nudity because if I didn't, he was just going to draw it. So I had to control where the nudity went. I had to make it as story specific as possible because there was other times where yes, it was a different time. You're a different person now, but there was a time where just shirts were coming off, and so I would aim the nudity, and at this time the devil had captured Christian Walker and was basically teabagging him, as you do. And because you have to imagine that the devil invented that, and so we started. He started sketching what he thought that would look like, and what it should like. Really, how humiliating would it like? Really make it something special. And he drew all these different kinds of there was a forked one. I remember there was a forked thing and a molded, and then you would send it to friends of ours. Which one do you think it is? And one of our friends wrote back, "What is wrong with you guys? Like we were so far off the rails of what normal human behavior is in our creative endeavor that it took one of our other nutty friends to pull us back in."
And it's not even the worst, strangest thing we got to do in that comic.
Yeah. So
absolutely, everyone's got to go through the volumes and see some of those choice bits. And no pun intended about choice bits, but they're there. They're definitely there. That's outstanding.
So I'm grateful that the right choice was to do it as an independent comic and for us to explore everything we needed to explore and to go as naughty and wherever we wanted to go as adults.
I'm looking right now at some questions. I wanted to.
I didn't see. I'm sorry. We were not ignoring the questions. All right.
No.
Where is Taki?
Oh yeah, that's true. Mike, absolutely. Jimmy wanted to know.
She's in this cage here.
Oh, nice.
I hear
that's that's good. A cameo.
I
see a shadow.
He's coming. There you are.
Hey.
Hello,
How are you, buddy?
Colorist on the planet. How are you?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yes, you.
Yes, your cameo, bud. We want to know how you're doing. Absolutely.
Definitely. How are you guys doing?
We're so cold over here.
Cold?
Yeah, we're freezing.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
Are
Yeah,
you
it's
draw?
cold out there.
Are you drawing or coloring right now, Tuck? I see the thing on your hand. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
because
also profession.
I see your
Yeah,
Michael Jackson
it's
glove, and that's why I was
fashion.
wondering. Okay, all right,
Yeah,
good deal.
See,
Just
I'm
fashion.
too.
It's part of a more elaborate outfit she puts on for.
We do
After-
part-time
and-
movement shots group that we're in.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
All right, while Tuck's on screen real fast, I want to ask about the Kickstarter, the comic that comes out via Kickstarter.
Yeah, After Realm.
After Realm, thank you.
Oh yeah. That's
After Realm. I know.
Covers it.
I Kentucky are my buddies, but After Realm is a very, very good comic book from them. And I think the third issue is the real sell. The third issue is really original and awesome. So I hope people check it out. Particularly if you love Powers. It's Mike's genre brain unfettered. I really like it.
Thanks.
Sure.
We're doing the Kickstarters quarterly. I think the next one we're going to do mid-November. And that'll be for issue 4, which is already drawn and stuff. And
Cool.
yeah, just going to keep that ball rolling.
Yeah,
Excellent.
it's really exciting when your friends do something that makes you sit up straight and go, "Oh, look at you!" Yeah, it was really cool.
Thanks, buddy.
When you put it in trade, Mike, is it going to be 4 issues, 5 issue trades? What do you think?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
This is I know it sounds a little BSy when writers talk about how organic their story is, but considering the format of Kickstarter, it's just completely different than a regular direct market comic. You can really take your time telling the story. So I'm still trying to gauge it, especially because some issues are 64 pages, some are 48 pages and stuff. So I'm going to guess about issue 5.
I understand. And, honestly, that's been the recurring conversation with all of you since Diamond had their brief shutdown and these alternatives. But also the great thing, I was talking about it with Brubaker, that you don't have to limit yourself in chapters to be 20 or 22 pages. And, I mean, that was also a great hallmark of Powers and an infamous issue that went all the way to the back cover. And I loved it. And a lot of people are like, hey, where's the back matter? Where's the letters? Where's all the stuff? Where's the no life suggestions of what to watch? Yeah, F you, man. And it's like, I'm sure
that's exactly correct.
We just trying to give you more story. Yeah,
It's a continuing struggle I have, which is I'm thinking like an indie guy, and I'm like, oh, just fill the book up with stuff. I'd be thrilled. It's still whatever it costs, and you're filling up the pages full of content. And then we thought, hey, listen, we can go to the back cover. It's our back cover.
We did that one.
Use it. We don't have to make it an ad.
Some people didn't get that it went to the back cover.
It looked like there was a pagination missing. It looked like the book, the letter column was actually missing from the book. So
Yeah.
I understood the complaint. But you try your things. You try them. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Here-
What were the other highlights from Baltimore? What did Mark say? What did Mark said something about Kickstarter too, didn't he? I got a bunch of tweets about it.
I don't know. God, I mean,
doing it?
honestly, between hosting the panels that I had to host and wanted to host, I won't deny I did miss a couple conversations.
Oh, okay. I thought you were in on that one.
Because I was napping. Well, the great thing is, thank God, because I'm part of Mainframe and stuff, these are all word balloon episodes, including this very conversation. So yeah, I mean, I'm literally sitting on a couple of weeks of content. But by the same token, people are like, "Can we talk this week? Can we talk Monday? Do you have time before Halloween?" It's like, yes, it'll be fine. And that's why I do 25
there are
podcasts
still
a
people
week.
in our business that think they need to promote their book the week of the national election. They think this is the week I'm going to get out and get some promotion. All
You
right.
still think there's going to be an election that week?
No, that's what I'm saying. While people are talking about the election that never happened, then maybe.
Brian knows I was at his house last summer, and he's like, "I'm telling you, this guy's not going to want to leave office, and there's going to be a brouhaha." And I'm like, maybe. And here we are, and it's like, again, the sorry kids, don't mean to get political. We can move on, but yeah, it's.
It's not political. He looked in the camera and said, "I'm not leaving." He said it a year ago. He said it 2 years ago. He said it 3 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
All right, a couple questions to get back to our.
Yes,
our
let's get back into the fun parts of the world.
It's me, Ryan. Dialogue is such a hard thing to write and draw. Brian, who do you draw from to write your dialogue? And Mike, when you read what Brian wrote, how do you visualize your characters talking? Interesting question for both of you.
with the dialogue often comes a lot of subtext, acting notes, or what I think the artist wants. Depends on the artist and what the artist can do with. Everyone has different strengths and weaknesses in that. So it's not just the dialogue, but how you're presenting the dialogue to the artist and in what sense. Most of my heroes look at dialogue like music. Most of my heroes play their instrument in a way that is very appealing to listen to, and that could be anywhere from David Mamet to Aaron Sorkin to Richard Price. There's a lot of playwrights that I'm a big fan of, and I look to them because playwrights are able to often get the story across through dialogue without it sounding like exposition that you're giving to the reader. It's like more natural way to get across the information. So I spend a lot of time on that to this day, trying to find the best way to do the least cliche thing you could do with the dialogue, which often brings, when you do that, it's harder work, but then things start to flow in a nice way, and the jokes get better and more in the moment. And that's another thing too, is I really spend a lot of time with the characters in the moment that they're in. I look around the room for them. I smell the room for them. I try to really be in the moment and have the dialogue reference how they're feeling. Comics are cool because you can really have people wear their heart on their sleeve a lot, and it be good writing. Whereas if you did it, and sometimes in TV or film, it could come off, a little bit like a thud. But in comics, people can really look at each other and say, "I love you." And it really work. Whereas in TV, you're better off with it. They can be saying "I love you," but they're saying, "Can I have some ice cream?" They're saying something else. So
subtext, yeah.
Mike is one of the few people in comics who can do subtext. You can say they're saying yes, but the eyes say no, or they're the opposite of what they're saying, and it's very difficult to do. Mike can do it. Alex Maleev can do it. A few other people can, but it's a talent unto itself. The characters look like they're thinking. They look like they have a history. The weight of the world is on Christian Walker's shoulders. Every single panel of that graphic novel. It makes it just wonderful to write to, because what will happen is a lot of the times dialogue will be removed in the lettering stage because I gave him the line, I gave him the emotion. He put it so clearly on panel that the line is actually getting in the way and making it less interesting. It's funny because to this day, I had an artist this week who got flustered that I had removed a line of dialogue from a DC book. And I had to point out, you see, I was just covering up your excellent acting. I was not making it better. That if I was in the editing room with a film, I would yank the pieces. I would yank the line. So, it's just at that last minute when you see that art, if you're showing and not telling, show. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian's. I mean, that's the highest compliment you can get working with Brian, and it's like when I know that we're at our peak Michael Jordan-like levels working, which isn't all the time. That's why I'll make that joke. Like, it's not all the time, and when you get there, Brian's writing brings out the best acting in me because he does write subtext. He does write that thing of what people are saying versus what they're feeling, and when I'm able to do that. To reciprocate and do that really well, then a lot of times, like you said, he'll take the dialogue out, and there is a part of me that feels like, oh, but shit, man, like I got here because of the way you wrote it, and I want to see those words. But you have to be your own editor sometimes, and realize, well, the best bet is to take it out. If Brian's taking it out, then it's only me who ever saw that and has that feeling, that weird attachment to that moment. But we made a better moment together.
Yeah,
a better moment than either of us had intended at the moment, and that's like one of the best things. That's one of the best feelings you can get. And, we get at least once an issue.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Yeah, when I start piling on the dialogue, that's when there's trouble.
Great questions here, and I want to get to them. And comments as well. Taylor says, I want to thank you for always creating characters of color and diversity. Off topic, Brian, and I'm going to zoom in. He sees the Akira box set. So he's got to ask, what other manga are you a fan of? And he wants to know Mike's favorite manga as well.
Akira's and Atamo is my favorite. I hate to be so on the edge wow, what a shock. Someone in America likes Akira. But and I was actually watching an Akira little documentary last night on the YouTube because that's where I am in my life. And I was shocked what year the movie originally was released versus when I had seen it. Because I remember seeing it thinking it was an older movie and it had only been out 6 months. So I'm the way it was presented to us in America was unique, and it was a game changer for me as I was finding my feet and my voice as a comic creator. I think it came out in 1991. My first book was published in 91, which makes next year my 30th anniversary in comics. And buy me a cake. And but so it was very, very, very important to me, the movie and the book itself.
How about you, Mike, with manga and anime?
Yeah, relatively obvious. I mean, there's Otomo is a big one, not just his Akira work, but just his body of work. Shiro Matsumune, I think his name is, did Appleseed. That stuff was really super mind-blowing when I saw it. I still love it. And, and obviously Miyazaki Films, and, the Valley of the Wind graphic novel set is just, it's just a masterpiece. And they're all such different creators who just do things in different ways that it's amazing at how wildly diverse those subjects are just under that. And then there's a bunch of modern artists that I follow on YouTube. I don't know what they're working on or what their art is, but they'll just post. I think there's a guy named Yoshido. I forget his name offhand, but he just does live inking and drawing. So it'll be like a 4-hour video of just the sound of a pen.
Really, nothing else. That's fantastic.
It's the best. Yeah. So that's how I absorb it now.
That's awesome. Let's see here.
Yeah, a couple of people were saying nice things about Power is the best ever graphic novel. Last time we had all gone together, the book was just shipping, so we were talking about it more in the abstract. And now it's been out, and I just wanted to say we got a lot of email and posts about the graphic novel. I have some kind of pandemic brain. I didn't I was like just putting books out in the middle of this. Like, no one's going to see this. And I was so delighted and just thank you for buying the book. Thank you, however it is that you got the book. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for sticking with us all these years, and then thank you for going out of your way to get the book this summer. That was very, very cool. I just wanted to say that to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I wish I was more sort of verbal about it or social media about it when we came out, but we tend to have these moments with Powers, these really big moments that we've been spared of too much excitement or happening too quickly, too fast. Like the television show happened after 10 years of movie deals that didn't quite happen, and then a pilot that didn't quite happen. So by the time we actually made the show, we weren't like, oh my God, losing our mind, right? And then with the end of Powers coming about, it was a very, very long process for a lot of reasons we could talk about. So by the time it came out, we had really emotionally been through everything already. And then by the time it actually comes out, the pandemic's heading. So it really, really was a nice way to soften, the ending of Powers and stuff.
Wow.
But I do wish I was more verbal or just more out there on social media, really thanking people for the moment. It was just hard,
You know what? I find I have this with Superman and Legion too. You want to engage everybody because everyone's going out of the way to write nice things to us, and then you just feel like the world's burning. I don't want to read a bunch of
victory lap while everybody's dying.
Yeah, and then but at the same time, our job is to hang out and have fun and chill and make people forget about it for 10 minutes. So it's always this weird balance with me. I would just take these moments where I really feel everything's calm, like this moment, and we can all take them in and say hi. But I'm sorry if I'm not as engaged as I used to be online. It's just very difficult to know what kind of energy is appropriate, or sometimes even when you're feeling it or not.
But I would say for both of you, honestly, and truly, this has been the recurring conversation with all the creators I talk to. Uh, you could talk about making the donuts, or you could make the donuts, and you guys are making the donuts. And frankly, you are comforting a lot of people while you make the donuts because I've seen the numbers. Graphic novel sales and comic sales are doing just great during the
Yeah, they
pandemic.
really are.
Because people, we're inside. Go ahead, Brian. You can expand on that.
No, and I wasn't sure. Me and Mike had talked about this. We are sadly old enough to we have been through other economic downturns in the market, and historically, every time there's an economic downturn, entertainment spending goes up because people just need to chill. And I
get away from it.
understand that. It's just for something because there's so much going on. Like we're in like 4 different reasons the world's gone to hell at once, and it's just hard to process that sometimes. So I wanted to say I'm having mental problems about it. I'm grateful that the readers are enjoying the work. That's why we're doing it. I had the same thing with Legion. We had this like crazy 44 artist Legion project that we put out in the middle of all this, and everyone was really enjoying it, and it was created to be enjoyed. And then I was like, I can't, I don't know, I can't retweet all this. It's just you don't want to be, there's a debate going on. I'm like retweeting things about Ultra Boy. Anyway.
No, and again, well, Mike, with you and Taki doing After Realm and then doing it as a Kickstarter and stuff, these other alternate ways of distributing comics and stuff. Any Brian, any thoughts on that? And Mike, obviously, you're doing well with the Kickstarter, going quarterly and stuff. So it's obviously succeeding in the way that I'm sure you guys had hoped.
That Kickstarter's going great, and we're going to do some other ones that I've got planned as well. It's just a great way to put stuff out, and one of the things I really love about it is there's not the same sort of limitations that you have in the direct market. And I don't mean that in a wide negative way, but like, say you want to do, a story about turtles who are accountants,
don't give it away.
you probably won't be able to sell that in the direct market, but you'll find an audience on Kickstarter. You can do any sort of weird thing, or like there are other styles that I work in. Sometimes people have seen me do like the life drawing stuff with a flat pen. It's very different than everything else. I would love to do a book like that, but nobody in the direct market necessarily wants that from me, right? They want what they know from me, or something similar, not some crazy other thing. But I could do something like that there and not worry about it. So there's a nicer amount of freedom. But comics, the direct market is great. It's immediate. You have an idea, you can get it out really quick. You don't have to do that same sort of, half of Kickstarter is the actual campaign as opposed to the work. And sometimes it's just easier for me to just sit down and just draw scripts, and next thing I know, it's out on the shelves, and I'm moving on to the next thing. And I like that kind of speed, which you don't get in the Kickstarter stuff.
Understood. I know that's fantastic. Here we go.
All I know is you brought up donuts. Now everyone's asking for donuts.
Exactly. Well, and you're in Voodoo Donut country, Brian. So you're gonna have to make a run for us.
I will never forgive you for killing Melanie Moore. You created someone new that I loved and take her away a year later. Hurtful. Yep.
Good answer. Very good.
I had a fortune cookie that said the exact same thing.
I deeply appreciate that very, very nice compliment. I wanted you to be mad. I wanted you to be hurt. I'm glad you liked her as much as I did. And we haven't like, it's hard to see someone murdered in Action Comics. It's a fierce place to see a murder. So
I'm looking for, because a couple people have asked, and there was a kid that was one. Here it is.
No.
Hey, Brian, you're my favorite comic book writer of all time. When I was 12 to 15, all I would read was your books. What advice would you give to an aspiring 17-year-old writer? And Mike, I think you've obviously got thoughts on that as well.
Dive in, my friend. Get in there. Write something. Write for yourself. And also write, may I say, try to give yourself some short story assignments. And when I say short story, I mean 8 pages, beginning, middle, and end. All right. And by the way, you Google short story writing advice. Every writer on the planet will give you this advice. Why? Because you find out a lot about yourself. You find out what kind of stories are important to you, the sturdy structure of a story. And with 8 pages, you really got to scrape away everything that isn't important. You got to really just get to story And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, and but the most valuable thing. So try that. Also try things that surprise and delight you. You're at an age where you pick up your guitar and start messing around with it just to see what'll happen. If you like certain genres, go for it. If there's also genres you like but they frustrate you, that is something. That's a voice in your head telling you have something to say in this genre. I have found this out. Like I was like always like hands off with sci-fi, like a little like standoffish with it, and I realized no, there's a kind that I like, and it's rare for me, so I'm gonna go make some of that, right? And so try that too. Right? Like if I'm doing something that's annoying you right now, go right in that genre to see what it is that you want out of that genre. All right. Well, that is a stepping stone thing that's going on since cavemen. I don't like your caveman drawing. I'm going to go do my own.
You just described the inspiration for Word Balloon. That's exactly what happened with me. And no disrespect to anybody who's me. But yeah. Mike, any thoughts on that idea of an aspiring writer?
I think everything that Brian said. Another piece of advice, which I wish I knew about when I was young, was to keep a journal. One of the reasons to keep a journal is you can hone. It's like a gym, for your writing. Like you're not writing stories and stuff, and it'll help you extract everyday stuff that you don't think is a story. When you talk to a lot of younger people and you say write what you know, and like I remember hearing that when I was a kid. I was like, I'm from a little town. I draw all day. I don't have friends and I don't do anything else. I literally have nothing to write. Meanwhile, all this stuff was going on in my house and around my head and stuff that I didn't recognize was going on, and how that would serve me as a writer later if I paid attention to any of it. When you realize, how do you write about a boring day? Well, there's a great Madman episode, right? Just this episode where they just got up late and they were drinking in the middle of the afternoon, and then they realized it was 8 o'clock and they hadn't fed the kids anything. And it was just this great episode about having a lazy day because the writers understood how to extract that. And I think like a journal is a really good tool for that.
That's outstanding. Absolutely.
Also, you're young, so now is the time where if you're serious about your craft, you have to make it part of your lifestyle. So you're someone that eats, drinks, sleeps, and writes. So you have to demand from yourself a certain amount of time a day. And also the writing thing is the thing that's the easiest to forgive. I don't have time today, not today, but you have to make yourself, just like you wouldn't skip a meal, don't skip your writing time, which is your personal also meditation time. It's such a good time for yourself. You're younger, you probably don't care that much about it, but you will, as you get older, realize this time with yourself is very important to your creative journey. So take it.
Could not agree more. All right, interesting question. And you've talked a little bit about this, but Welverin asks, early on in Powers, Brian, you mentioned how it would end. How much of this did you have planned? Was it just a general idea, or did you have a good idea of the overall arc of the series?
Yeah, I will tell you, it was hard to, at the beginning of the series, perceive its success and its longevity. So I did not have a 20-year plan for Powers, as I did not have a 20-year plan for anything. And also hard to imagine, like, anything that would come from Powers. None of it, I couldn't imagine any of it. Hope for all of it, but you can't imagine it. So we had vague ideas. We had like a terrible idea that we held on to for a couple of years, where eventually Walker was going to reveal that he always had powers, and fuck you guys. I just wanted to see what it was like. What a terrible idea that is. What a terrible late 90s alt rock idea that is. And we had abandoned that. Like, I remember he goes to jail for murder. And then we had a whole thing where like Walker was going to get pinned for murder. He's going to go to jail. They're going to go, give me your belt. And he kicks up the belt and goes, well, that's my drainer. And he flies away. And then, he goes off to the next thing. Yeah. So we didn't do that. That would have been terrible. So as I will say, around the time of the TV show, we started planning what this storyline would be. Like that. So I'd say about 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago, this story started to plan itself. At the same time, Mike was doing the guts of what would be the flashbacks as a different story, as a different kind of story that he really, really wanted to do. I'm a big fan of when your partner comes up to you and goes, I really need to do this. I'm like, do it, go. And then when we saw the pages together, I turned to him and said, we can take these pages and apply them to the bigger idea and maybe elevate both ideas. And isn't that what a collaboration partnership should be at? So that this was one of those good moments where both of us wrote a song. We came together and realized we both wrote about 3/4 of a song. So now we have a song and a half.
That's awesome. Here's a great question from Bradley. Are there any characters that you wish you could have worked with more from previous story arcs of Powers?
The hardest thing with Powers is that it's a murder mystery. So some of them are going to get murdered. There's going to be murder. And also, they're cases. So not every character makes it to every case. So yeah, you do get to miss them. And and also I miss writing the TV version of them sometimes. Like even when we were putting together this, I could feel the influence of the TV show on the graphic novel, which was unique. I did not feel that before in other ways. Just the overall energy of Powers, like bearing down on one piece of story.
Yeah. It's funny. The one character I missed, we had killed kind of early-ish on, was Cutter.
Yeah.
Great. Brian writes the best asshole heroes. Like they're people you wouldn't want to hang out with because people are complicated, right? Like, but they'll do the right thing with good people, right? They just have bad personalities. Cutter, and in the graphic novel, transversely, his daughter is in it, and she's my new favorite character. I already miss her. I miss drawing her. She was in a very stylish tweed suit, and her hair looked awesome and stuff. And it was really fun, and I miss her. It's weird. That one issue, and I'm like, shit.
Well, that's why I've been hesitant to call this finale because we like new Detective Cutter so much that we think that there might be something there. But I would offer that it would need to be really something special for us to like,
or El Camino, or
you guys read my mind. That's what I was going to ask. Is there a Better Call Saul sideway, addition to what you guys have created in the Powers world?
It's a high class problem, but me and Mike have a laundry list of shit that we were supposed to get to over the years, and we have so much we want to do and so much we can do. And then there's Powers that we love doing, and also I love United States of Murder Inc. Even more than Powers, and I keep thinking of things about that, and then we want to go back to Takio, and there's 2 other things we're supposed to do, and the clock is ticking. We're not getting any younger, so part of me thinks just stop and move on. Even ER went off the air eventually, and and do the new stuff. So we'll see. I don't know. It's.
He does leave a really nice world there in a way that, like, we always had a world in Powers that we developed together, but the way Brian structured this at the end, it felt like, a true world as opposed to just one for Walker and Dina. At the end of it, it felt like they're a smaller part of this larger thing now. Without lessening their characters any, but we can go forward without them, having the shadow be there.
Yeah,
100%. No, and truly, where everyone is left, that survives. If for people who haven't read, you'll have to read to find out who. It's still, I think, fresh enough on the bookshelves that
I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, no. But
who killed Retro Girl?
But I will. The response to the graphic novel made me maybe we shouldn't do anymore because it was exactly the response we wanted. It was warm, and they got it, and also so get the fuck off stage. Stop.
Yeah. Man.
It's not my strong suit, which is so funny because I'm such a pop culture professor. Like I know
we'll know when the time is right. Like I have a feeling we'll know why it needs to come back. Beyond like having fun, there will be something that will tell us it's time to bring it back.
It's weird that I'm like Seinfeld is like one of my like creative like rabbis. Like I'm shocked by it. I'm shocked that his Jewish Zen Buddhist philosophy. It gets under my skin so hard. Like Old Man Seinfeld is really interesting person with a lot to say that I feel, and he is the king of getting off stage on time. Like he got like perfect get off stage, and I see that. And yet I always go, let's roll the dice one more. Like I always like, yeah, one more.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There would have to be some sort of reason, and I can't really project in my mind what that would be, whether it's cultural or pop cultural. I don't know. But yeah, there would have to be a reason, a sign that we would go, oh, okay, well, we know it's more than just this kind of like urge to, draw the characters and write the characters again. We'll know if there's a reason.
Yeah. Here, Michael Cooper wants to know what you guys do for downtime when you're not creating stories. Good question.
What? That's an excellent
there is no downtime.
Well, we're 9 months into this pandemic, so I honestly, we laugh because we created a situation for ourselves decades ago where we turned all of our hobbies into our vocation, and then didn't replace them with other hobbies. It's just so we get paid to do the thing we would do. So I have with the kids, we do a lot of Lego work and a lot of even this stuff. Even like this week, I was like watching a lot of stuff. It was all fun as hell. Most of it was actually for work. If I had to really I'm working with the guy who made Gangs of London. So watching Gangs of London, I was having the best time. I was as relaxed as I've been like in 3 years. It was so good, highly recommended. And then I went, oh yeah, but I'm still working. This is, But boo-hoo. Yeah. So the goal is get yourself a job that doesn't feel like a job, right? Even with the deadlines looming and it can be pressure, and even the stress of this pandemic and everything. On the worst day, still writing Superman. It's it's a pleasure. Honestly, that's the other thing too. Like this whole pandemic, where I haven't been in my best brain like everybody else. My job made me hang out with Superman for a few hours a day. Like I have to think like Superman. You have to. And if it does, and when Superman doesn't sound like Superman, if it ain't hopeful, it's Superman. And so to get my mind to a hopeful place every day in my writing and then spill out in my day, that was a nice hobby. I must say I know that's weird, but it was like, oh, what a grateful thing. I felt so grateful that I got to do that. So Legion does the thing too.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I literally don't have any hobbies. And I work 7 days a week. And that's not like one of these, oh, it's a burden. I work 7 days. Like I choose to. This is how my life is designed. And I stop when my brain and my body is too tired, and it just tells me I got to lay down and watch TV all day.
It's hard to describe. I've known Mike many, many, many years, and this is true every day that I've known him. But I've never had a way to easily describe to people what it's like to watch Mike. In the movie Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, John Hurt's character is drawing in the air, and then they put a piece of paper in front of him, and there's a whole drawing. If Mike doesn't have paper in front of him, he starts John Hurting. He starts. he just starts. You might as well put a piece of paper there and cash it in because it's going to happen either way. Mike cannot stop. I've seen Mike cannot stop.
And knowing what Mike was doing before he changed, because again, it's something Mike and I talked about in conversation to prepare his book, The Art of Mike Oeming. You had your time as an inker, your style was very different, and then during the 90s you were one of those guys that you've lived pencils down yourself personally during that rough time. and truly you took that time, and you were working in the booth where all those trucks were coming in and out, and you were in that like almost it wasn't a toll booth, but think of that as like a parking attendant. Yeah. And you're sitting there with your sketchbook, man, reinventing yourself. And that's fantastic that which I'm sure was a really tough emotional time for you, Mike, that you were able to channel that into your creativity.
This is one of those cliches you hear all the time about how the worst thing that happened to me, or one of the worst things that happened to me, was actually one of the best things that happened to me. So very similar to what's going on now. And I hate to say it, what I think is really coming. That mid-90s crash, I had gone from building a career, taking time from my teenage years into my 20s to build a career. So I went from working on indie comics and like indie porn comics, whatever I could do to get published.
Like which titles, Mike?
to being an inker at Marvel to working on Judge Dredd and Foot Soldiers and stuff. And then I couldn't get anything. So long story short, I had to go get a regular job. Everything just dried up. The companies were going under, stores were going under, 50 people trying to get one job kind of thing. And my son was just born. So I needed to bring in real money. So there I was, like at 23, 24, like suddenly I had to go get a real job and get out of comics. I had to stop contacting editors and stuff. And in my head, I was like, all right, I'm going to have a job and, you know, this is going to suck and I can still draw for myself and I'll still make comics and get them out however I can, very grumpily, you know. But as time went by, I realized, you know, I don't need what I thought that I needed. I didn't need to be in the stores. I didn't need to do signings and to be a guest someplace. And yes, I wanted to be published and be paid for drawing as opposed to, you know, watching trucks. But I found a new self-worth in my art and my relationship to it through that. And I redefined myself because I had less time to draw. So I wasn't doing all these noodly little lines on everything. And I stripped everything away that I didn't need. It was this weird parallel between my real life and my art, both of which I had to strip away all these extra things and just pare it down. So those, what I perceived as a couple steps backwards, I needed to take a break. I needed to move back and rethink everything and then move forward. And then powers happened. And I think with what's going on now, it'll, if people keep that story in mind, I think it'll get people through a lot. Because you got to use it.
Yeah, and again, back to the Go-Go's documentary. There's a line in the documentary. No, one of them says, I learned everything about myself from failure. I learned nothing from our success. We had every success a band could have. I learned nothing. Nothing came of it. Every failure made me a better musician, made me a better partner, made me a better band member. And that really struck. We've heard a lot of people talk those words, but there's still, we live in this weird bubble right now where it's this Instagram thing where everyone wants to be their best version of themselves without actually earning it or learning anything. Like, no, most of life is failure. Most of it is falling on your ass and learning from it. It's the journey. And without that, that's that level of work you're not going to get to. You're not going to get to the good stuff. So we celebrate your failure, learn from it, fall on your ass, pick yourself up. All your heroes did. So
100%. Absolutely, man. Jimmy wanted to know, and a few other people were asking about this as well. Are we going to see more Naomi now that Young Justice is done that next month? And why the hell did Young Justice have to end?
I'm Young Justice was going to go 18. We ended up going 20 during the transitions of DC's evolution as it evolves. I haven't talked about what I'm doing next to DC yet because of pandemic. I mean, they literally like put out the solicitation for my last Superman on like 9/11, and I'm like, I'm still the age where you're not supposed to talk about yourself on 9/11, right? I don't know. I didn't mention it. I have a new major book at DC. We will announce it when things are hopefully calmer. I'm pretty excited about it. And the pieces at DC are all gonna reveal themselves as the year goes on. So yeah, I'm sad that we're done on Young Justice because I loved it. I would have liked it to have continued without me. That was my original goal, that I'd step off the book, but that wasn't to be. Yeah, it just wasn't to be during the transitions. But part of the deal at DC was that I was supposed to do less, like I was supposed to do for them, but less, and none of that happened. Some of it was because of the nature of the deal. Some of it was because new toy box. Some of it was because almost died, and I was running like a lunatic. So all these things kind of barreled down my first 2 years at DC, where I was just like a lunatic. But now I'm going to settle down like I was supposed to and be a little worse. So, which means yes, more Jinx World. That was the other thing, more creator owned.
That's what it's
Yep. But more DC too.
That's excellent, man.
Yeah.
And also, honestly, I love how they turn.
I didn't answer the Naomi question, but go ahead.
No, finish on Naomi, and then I'll say.
I'm sorry. There, Naomi. As soon as Jamal Campbell is done with Far Sector, He has pages already written for Naomi 2. Also, Naomi's place in the DC universe will be revealed very shortly. That's all I can say at the moment. So for Naomi fans, thank you for your patience and thank you for your support, because you made certain moves that we're making with her inevitable. So not to be too Thanos-y, but I'm pretty excited about that. Some really, really cool Naomi news coming. And I'm being vague and enthusiastic, but it's genuinely vague and enthusiastic.
What I like is how DC turned 5G into future state, which I think is a good shift with that material and making it an event rather than, and we'll see what sticks. It's interesting, Brian, and you can appreciate this having created Miles Morales. And in fact, we were talking about this in an earlier conversation, they're all kind of conflating right now, my panels, but truly, the feeling was, hey, Clark Kent is Superman, period. Bruce Wayne is Batman, period. Peter Parker is Spider-Man, period. And then all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, we like Miles. Miles is Spider-Man, and there's room for Miles. So it's going to be interesting to see what sticks, if anything, from Future State. But I appreciate them finding a way to use that material, maybe giving some of you guys a break in between projects and stuff. And I think that's all positive. And I was talking to Philip Kennedy Johnson about his Superman stuff for Future State. And he says it's without giving anything away, it is kind of coming out of the end of your Superman run. And I don't know how much you can talk about that, or unless is he frozen? He might be frozen.
No, he just does that sometimes.
I know, exactly. Oh no, Brian is in the Phantom Zone. Oh no, my God. So, Mike, I'll ask you, what are your future plans for Superman?
I plan on him bringing the shorts back, wearing them on the outside, but backwards, like inside out. Because to get a second day's wear out of him, obviously, as many of us bachelors would do. But there's a very practical reason for that as well, which is one of Superman's weaknesses is magic, and if you wear your underwear on backwards, it helps keep the devils away. I think El Chapo was up to that, and some other drug lords. I think it would be good for Superman as well. Oh, there's Brian. Hi. I was just pitching my.
I literally went from John about to say something about Phil Johnson, and you went right to the magic underwear. I'm like, right. Okay. Anyway, what did Philip Johnson?
He was talking about his Future State story and how it was coming out of your wrap up to Superman, and without spoiling, I think that's interesting, and I don't know how much you can say without spoiling what you're planning.
That's the look on my face. I'm actually not I know a lot of stuff, and I genuinely, at this moment, don't know what's public and what's not. I will say that there is some 5G sprinkled in the Future State, but it's not a total re-engineering of what 5G was. 5G was not all the way down the line yet. It was so I can see where people think Future State is 5G or whatever, and there are bits and pieces, but it's not totally that. Just saying. My Future State project is very excited about is Legion of Superheroes with Riley Rosmo. I've been like the day I walked into DC, they just printed Martian Manhunter #1 with him and Steve Orlando, and I was blown away by this dude. And then we did a retreat with him where every sketch he did, every design was blowing everyone's mind. And I was, and one of them I actually stole. Actually, can I have that design for Xanadoth, the villain we used in Superman? He was just coming up with like villain designs, just like demons in his head and stuff. And I was like, can I have that? Like it was that good. And we've been talking the whole time about what we would do. And then like him, like just tearing into Ryan Sook's world of Legion was really exciting to me. So we're almost done on those two issues. For those for Legion fans, just FYI, these two Future State issues are in continuity, and consider them issues 13 and 14 of Legion of Superheroes. Honestly, this is if things were continuing in a numerical way, they would be. This is the move I'd be making. I would be doing a time jump and shocking you with what happened between
Wow.
issues 2 and 13. Yeah, I absolutely love this. This was thrown in front of us, and I love it.
So is your Legion run continuing after Future State?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. And that's funny. Talking about Riley sketching like that, Mike reminds me of the times you guys both were telling me in the Powers television room when you and Ben Edlin would be off to the side sketching and stuff like that, and just coming up with crazy shit.
The creator of the Tick was one of the writers for the show before his own show took off.
Right.
And we were in there in the writers' room, just it's like high school. Oh, again, the adults are talking, and there we were, just sketching funny faces and crap.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Bradley points out a great scene, and man, Brian shared it with me before it came to print. But when Perry White hugged Clark Kent, when he revealed no dialogue, just a beautiful moment, and ending with that hug. Yeah, seriously, man.
It's a beautiful place to be when you know your entire creative team will just nail it. There wasn't there wasn't a plan B. There wasn't another version of it. There wasn't some line I was going to drop in if needed. They will nail this, and nailed it. They did every step of the way.
Was that Ivan
and Joe and Alex and Claire? They're an amazing team. And when you get up to like issue 18, that's when you really just know like stuff about them that they may not see in themselves. Or I had that with Bagley too, where it was just like things they are clearly capable of doing that they may not have had a chance to do yet, or whatever. But Jesus, it just that my favorite part of my time at DC is getting to work with people I would never have gotten to work with at Marvel, and having an equally great collaboration with them. And some of them are people I don't know. I don't know Ivan. I don't know him. Like, we're not pals, but we are just great. Yeah, but I love him. I love work with him any day and anything. But him and Ryan Sook, like everyone, and Johnny and Klaus, who I did know at Marvel. So it's just like this mixture of collaborations that are my oldest collaborations and things from Marvel and brand new things all happening at the same time.
That's awesome. I talked to Johnny a couple of weeks ago.
How did that go? How did that go?
He's a mensch. You know how he is. Seriously, and I even told him, I'm like, Johnny, the last time I saw you physically, Bendis and I are in a corner outside of the San Diego Convention Center, and you just happened to walk by. We're both like, John! And it was great. He sat down with, you didn't sit down. We stood with him for like 2 seconds. And I guess, you see, that's the thing, man. For me, I literally, because we see each other all so infrequently, I remember every moment that I spent with you guys. Oh, that's sweet. Well, yeah. Well,
when we leave the house, I remember everything we've done together too. Yeah, it's and for Johnny and Klaus, and we just wrapped up our Action Comics run. Like, we're not even done with our last issue yet, but we're headed towards the end. And in the last script, I don't mean to embarrass them, but I wrote a note to Klaus and John specifically saying, well, this was just lovely. I mean, just from me, literally not a moment. It was just lovely. And it was not the first time that I've been in a room with them where it was just absolutely professionals being professional and doing everything they can to do their best. And I've worked with Klaus and Johnny together and separately at separate Marvel. And it was also felt like that. So I know for some other people, it was like, well, you guys have been together for years. That was Avengers was 10 years ago, but for me, John and Klaus were people I read growing up. And I don't mean to make them sound like Methuselah, but they were names. They were names of reasons I wanted to be here. And then I got here and I worked with them and made me want to do even better. Right. And now, everyone who wants to grow up, you want to grow up and be Klaus Janson. That's the, you want to be an elder statesman of such high caliber, like Dave Gibbons and Walt Simonson, just like these guys that like held their shit together, still have all their powers as a creator, and they're just doing their work and getting it done. It's just so inspiring to me. So I just wrote them a note about how, you'll never see it this way, but you guys were the guys to me. And now we're here. We may be like 15 years into our creative relationship, but I can't imagine if you grew up playing guitar and then you got to play guitar with Eric Clapton, it would ever get old. You would never go, even 15 years later, go, shit, there's Eric Clapton. It would never, And that's how I feel about them. And it's what a great experience. And to have done it on Avengers and Superman, kind of cool.
Absolutely, my God. All right, here's a good Powers question from Leandro. Is the whole Powers series in print right now? How can one get Powers today? Well, there
are 7 essential volumes from DC Comics right now. It is no joke, my absolute favorite format those stories have been printed in. They're big, thick, pretty inexpensive. Each one carries about 1.5 years of material in it.
Wow.
So like little mini omnibuses, there's 7 of them. It takes you right up to the front door of our storyline here. So
there you go, man. Yeah. Are you happy with the format, Mike?
Oh yeah, and we have them in so many formats at this point.
Sure.
Which is cool. We've had all these opportunities that to present it in different ways. But I mean, that Brian's right. That is like sort of if you have the wrist power for it to hold one of those books, it's those are the best ways to digest them and financially too. I think they make the most sense.
Yeah,
okay,
they're a good deal. I'm really, really proud of them.
That's awesome. A lot of calls to see Brian Michael Bendis on Nightwing eventually.
I so appreciate it. I did my Dick Grayson in Batman universe. He ended up being through more than half of it, which was not originally planned. But as soon as and you can thank my son for that. My son, being 7, doesn't have any baggage. No, a lot of the Bat family has a lot of baggage with a lot of fans. Like everyone comes at them from a different thing. But when a 7-year-old comes up to you with his 2 Nightwing nightsticks and goes, "Nightwing is the coolest," and walks away, you have to sit there and think about it. Nightwing is the coolest.
You don't want London with those sticks, though, man. That kid is dangerous.
I posted this on Instagram, but we went to the even though Halloween is canceled here, we went to the Halloween store to let them like pick out a costume. We're gonna do some kind of like scavenger hunt here at the house, which is the Easter. Yeah. But Halloween was big for us. John and Mike knows this, but we at our old house lived across the street from the Holiday House in Portland. So we would have we would have in excess of 5,000 trick-or-treaters. The last 8 years of our life has been 5,000 trick-or-treaters coming to our door. You think we're bullshitting? No bullshit. Lying down the street, and it was just in concert with our neighbor who had Elvis doing a live concert, hearses, stuff on the lawn, thriller flash mobs. So we were all there just to accentuate the experience of our neighbor's amazing thing. So to my kids, Halloween is the #1 holiday. It beats everything. Britannica beats everything. And so it's a bummer that it's gone this year. So we went to the store and I said, pick out your costume. I'm not giving notes. Pick out whatever you want. And he came up with Ronin, which was, me and Joe. And and he goes, "Oh, Ronin, ninja swords." And I'm like, I win. Yeah, it was great. all those people yelled at me about Hawkeye. I win. Anyway.
He was in a Green Lantern costume for Rose City Con the day you guys went. And I was with you and stuff. And he's like, "Can you help me out?" I'm like, "Absolutely, London. No worries, man." I'm like, "That's great."
Yep.
So, yeah, man, and that's the great thing, man. I mean, obviously, you guys are in the business. And so, it's like, no, this is, of course, you're going to feed into that love. And it's so, because I don't know how many creators, it's like, yeah, Dad makes superheroes, whatever.
Actually, my funniest moment early in 2 months into the pandemic, he was talking to one of his friends on Zoom, and he said to his friends, like, "What are you reading?" And the guy's like, and the kid goes, "Oh, we're out of books." He goes, "What?" He goes, "You don't have all the comics?" Because he lives in a house with all the comics. Between Marvel and DC, I've got a lot of comics. To him, it's an unlimited amount of Young Justice comics to read. So when he literally just found out that other houses aren't like this.
Oh, this is interesting. Ed wants to know your thoughts on vertical scrolling format. Both of you, I'd love to see what a Bendis Oeming vertical scrolling, non-traditional page, non-traditional panel format webcomic would look like.
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you're going to see something like that from us. We've been talking about it forever, and David Walker and I, as college professors, are a little obsessed with the infinite scroll idea that Scott McCloud and some other people brought up. So we've been toying with it. I do think there's going to be some format experimentation and changes that goes on in our business over the next couple of years. I think, by the way, in every entertainment medium, we're going to see some real surprising changes in how things are made and what they look like, and comics included. So stay tuned. Yeah, I think the monthly format of comics is great, and I've loved spending my time trying to master it. But I do think that for a great a portion of the audience, it is a big pain in the ass, and in the way of making the art form getting to its next step.
Yeah, evolve. Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I mean, it's easy with hindsight, but truly, because of COVID, because of the regime changes, we've seen it both of the big two companies. I'm like, and again, I don't mean this in a negative way, but I really do think that DC and Marvel really stuck in that Wednesday Warrior mode for 20 years. And a lot of what's been exciting about comics has been happening around them, with the burst of the young adult line and all these other great success stories, both from a publishing and creator standpoint. And they realize that now. And unfortunately, COVID has kind of forced them to evolve.
Well, and even like just COVID aside and the marketplace aside, releasing Powers as a full graphic novel was very satisfying, like deeply personally satisfying to myself. Mike, did you feel the same way?
Yeah, all of those sort of expectations are they've changed now. Like I always said, I would never do a graphic novel because you spend a year or whatever drawing it, and it's out for that week, and it's spoken of for about as long as any other floppy that's out there. So it seems like a giant time investment that didn't make any sense until the market starts to change. Then things started to change, and then it starts to make a lot of sense. And the Infinite Scroll thing is fun. I've done one which I've not published anywhere.
That's right.
Yeah. I've shown you, right? The Pizza or Die thing.
Yeah.
And, at first, it was tough because like it is a very different kind of storytelling than panel to panel stuff. But when you kind of break that code and you find that new kind of rhythm, it's really fun. It's really fun. The only real challenge is like that formatting thing. Like I would always have trouble doing it purely in the Infinite Scroll thing, knowing at some point I would want to do this as a book. I'd have to reformat and move things around and stuff like that. So that would always be a little challenging. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it's the future in America, but I mean, the Infinite Scroll comics, like webtoons as a platform, it makes us look like we don't exist. So whether superhero comics go that way or they just find another format, we'll see.
Understood.
I mean, a comic is a comic, Yeah. It doesn't really matter how it's delivered.
Totally. No, absolutely.
Guys, but what COVID did that was interesting. Again, I'm not talking about the devastating part. We're just talking about. I'm not ignoring the devastating part. I'm just trying to like not think about it for 2 seconds. Sure. But it was interesting how people it has altered people's relationship to their entertainment. It is solidified some people's relationship to their entertainment, while other people have reinvented their relationship. We, from the day the lockdown happened up until like 3 hours ago, someone has been tweeting at us, I just binged everything. I just read all of this, and it is such a warm, phenomenal feeling that we would, as authors, did not see coming. But it's everything you'd ever wanted, right? It's your work to last and to age well, or mostly. And so again, all of it was done in the moment, so you don't know how it's going to age well. You don't know what world you're writing it into, right? Well, the world changes, and you're writing into it, so it's fascinating to experience this with everyone. I love it so much, and I don't know how to describe it without sounding like like an entitled douche. It's just such a wonderful feeling. It is. It's just wonderful.
it's such an insane thing. Like you plan for success. Like, let's not lie. Like, every time you do a book,
Yeah, of
you're
course.
saying you think you're going to fail, but you have certain reasonable expectations. And our creator-owned book lasting 20 years was not amongst those expectations. I don't know what we thought. Even when we knew it was going to go on for a while, if you had said to us 10 years in, you'll get another 10 years, you're going to be doing this in another 10 years, and you're going to end on a high note. Like, really? That sounds like a little, like, am I in the Matrix now? Am I being fed that perfect steak? It's a little too good.
No, they did a great sketch on Saturday Night Live last night about four friends going to a fortune teller. And the sketch takes place in 2019. So the fortune teller is like holding her hand, and it's Kate McKinnon. She goes, "You're washing a bag of potato chips, and you're yelling, 'Not enough soap.' Why?" I don't know. This is over. Like, it's just these little bits of how our life is now and how we're entertaining ourselves. It was a great sketch.
That's outstanding.
But I think that a lot. Like, I think if someone would send a copy of the Legion of Superheroes trade paperback that came out this week to me in a time machine and just showed me, here's your name on the cover of this Legion trade paperback, I'd be like, what happened? Like in 2015 when I'm working on Miles Morales and blah blah blah. Like, what? Yeah, everything about it. And then I turned to the back cover and see the skinny picture of myself and go, yes.
I understand, man. No, and again, no, and it's interesting, Brian, because really at the very beginning of the pandemic, we had a conversation, and you were really cheerleading in terms of, look, we know it's going to be tough times, but this is when the most creative ideas sometimes come, as Mike said earlier as well.
I'm still waiting for that, but yes.
Yeah, but now, something I understand. But again, these shifts that all of you and all of us in creative fields have had to make, again, we wish that circumstances were better, but it really, in the back of our heads, even in our most depressed moments, made us go, all right, adapt. We gotta figure out how to do what we do well and do it under these circumstances. And I'm glad that it isn't, a block for you guys to churn out stuff. I mean, or whatever.
It takes longer to get to the good stuff. I say this not to freak anybody out, because I know I'm like a little writing machine, and so I want to be very clear. It is almost everyone we know. It is very hard to sit down and write funny, hopeful stuff when I'm here in Portland, and sometimes literally stuff is on fire.
Yeah, and Rome is burning. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know how it's going to end. And I literally wrote a book about Portland burning, and I don't know how it's going to end. So so what's been interesting to me is that we all have a philosophy. It's an Elmore Leonard philosophy. Sit your ass down and start typing. Right? It's not like the water don't come out unless you turn on the faucet. That, however many ways he has said it. So I do that, and I'm always amazed that I ended up getting pages done at the end of the night, because it feels like one letter at a time, one word at a time, and it's not usually how I go. But then at the end you go, oh, I got 6 pages done. I think it's such a weird feeling. And I'm only saying that because I know a lot of people are feeling this way, and I feel it should be normalized and not shamed in any way.
Absolutely.
We are all under severe mental stress, deep mental stress. I think that the only lucky thing that happened to me throughout this is that I've been through this once before when I almost died. Like, I had been through a creative mental stress. So I made some choices for myself based on that first thing that I brought into this pandemic that I'm very grateful for, that I was like, all right, I know what to do here. I know. And part of that was, if for the other writers and artists who want to know, it was, I focused very strongly on what kind of energy was going to be in my work. Like, what kind of stories am I going to put out there, and what are the images that you're going to see? Like, even you're talking about like killing that one character. I went back and forth on that. On what, like, you'll notice you do not see her dead body. I don't want to see more like. I know I wrote torso. I don't want to see any dismembered bodies right now. I'm like, we're seeing enough snuff films and stuff that it's not healthy. And I wanted to put out more hopeful energy in my work for myself, and that was the right choice. So if you find yourself in a creative blockage of some sort, it may be energy, it may be what kind of story are you telling. And I had a couple of instances in my life that were not related to this, where I kind of found out that there is creative energy in the world. And I know I sound like a big giant Portland hippie. I'm okay with it. And I saw this is Matthew McConaughey's been doing a lot of press this week for his book, and I'm about to sound a little like that, and I apologize, but creative energy comes back to you. You put it out in the world, it absolutely comes back. Sometimes it comes back a day later. Sometimes it comes back the day the book comes out. Sometimes it comes back decades later. But it absolutely comes back to you. And once you feel that, you go, oh, well, let me put out the good stuff. Let me put out as good energy as I can, right? That empowers as many people as I can. Because if it's coming back, that's what I would like. So do that with your work. Let that be your goal for a moment. See if that doesn't get a couple more pages written than you did the day before.
And I'm really lucky. I spend most of my day drawing, so I can escape into the drawing. You know, when you're writing, you're using a different part of your brain. You know, it's the difference between driving your car on auto versus driving it through an obstacle course. You know, so I get to escape there. But the times I am writing, it is really hard. Luckily, After Realm's not hard because it's so fantasy. I'm writing a conspiracy satire book, which I had planned long before like this last couple of years. So it's triply hard. Like I'm doing stuff now where I've got like the layout from Victor Santos who's drawing it, and I'm I'm lettering it, not for print, but lettering it so that I can see things like in its almost finished form, because it's that hard to concentrate and to find the tone. And you know, as the world gets crazier, it's really hard to write a crazy satire book when the world is always getting like more and more insane. You know,
I miss irony. Irony was one of my favorites.
I can just draw it.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're working with Victor Santos. My God, I love Polar. I love Filthy Rich, the thing he did with Azzarello. I'm such a fan. He's been on Word Balloon once, and it sounds like in the near future I'll have an excuse to have a conversation.
Hey, JB says he goes to the bathroom and may I say that is a legitimate way to get to where you need to go creatively. I just read a very short book by one of my heroes, John Cleese, who I ended up mailing a copy to a lot of people, because it's a lot like On Directing Film by David Mamet and a couple these like very short books. It's almost a pamphlet because he gets right to the point. And it's called Creativity, and it's mostly about allowing your brain to let go of everything and play. And if you really think about it, every time you've done that, that's when the good stuff happened. So allow yourself the time, but most adults won't let it happen, you know, because we're adults and we need to think adult thoughts. But if you go ride your bike or go play Candy Crush on the toilet and just stop thinking about whatever it is you're thinking about, there comes the good stuff. It happens daily for me. Every time I go, oh, it happened again. Wow. It's as amazing to me as any function my body does. It's just I'm stunned that that's what it takes. That you can't just go at this many years into your career. You can't just flip the switch to the creative part. You have to do this whole song and dance and build to it. But he relates that children are creative constantly because they're almost constantly in that state of play. And that's where you need to be. So anyway, read the book. I think it'll allow a lot of you to free yourselves from what you think is work versus what work really is.
Mike,
and also if you're stuck, really just start writing. Just write. You know, you're not building a shed where like if it's gone wrong, it's going to fall on you and you're going to get hurt, or you put all this physical effort into the thing. Like if it sucks, you can get rid of it, or maybe you'll have one part of it that's really good. You know,
just throw it out. But just write it and throw it out. Just get it out of your system. Do it.
Well, and to build on what Brian was saying about Cleese and creativity, I remember an actor's studio with one of our favorite creative people, the great Mike Nichols, from stand-up to his directing, and he said the same thing. And he said it was so hard to explain to producers and studio executives how important downtime is, and to let your brain relax and do nothing. And that's when the good stuff creeps in. So it is not surprising. And Cleese is a man who has explored cognitive thinking for years.
Yes.
So I've heard about this book, and I'm glad you're reminding me of this.
No, I bought it digitally, so I was reading it, and I may have been reading it up with a British accent because I was loving it so much. And because I love his voice. I mean, I know almost everyone on the planet does. I deeply love his voice. And I was so shocked when the book was over. I was like, oh, that was it. I really thought that was the first chapter, and it was over. It was such a great book.
The next time we're on the Word Balloon platform, because right now I'm at Baltimore Comic-Con, I'm going to have to show my 3-minute conversation that I did with John Cleese this summer, a meet and greet opportunity. I know, dude, again, and truly, folks, a free advertisement for Cameo and Fameo, because I also did one with Jamie Farr, which was amazing. Well, I didn't do it, but Jamie Farr answered us. But you got to do this meet and greet with Cleese. He released this like 45-minute, just him sitting on his couch telling the same stories we've heard a million times, but it was great. And then part of the package was, if you wanted to spend a little more money, you could do a meet and greet for 3 minutes with John Cleese. So I got to ask him questions, and it was so incredible. And I'm like, God only knows what's going to happen. I love the man. I certainly don't wish him any ill health, but this might be my only chance to speak to John Cleese, especially in these crazy times and given his advanced age. And thank God I did it. And I really am. I'm so pleased that I did it.
I think a lot of us are feeling that about. I mean, we have a job where we get to travel a lot, and also it's that if there was one thing about our jobs I took for granted, it was how much travel that was just offered us, right? And now that it's over, probably for a while, I am so grateful that we got to do so much traveling, and I got to show my kids so much of the world. Yes. I am so grateful for it. And the reason I brought it up is that literally I think the last concert I saw was John Cleese in person. It was me and Kevin McGuire went to see John Cleese. We went on a date to see John Cleese, and we almost didn't do it just because life's so busy, blah, blah, blah. But we forced ourselves to go, and I was so glad. All those things that I didn't have time for, and I shoved them in because I just wanted to experience it. I'm so grateful for them now.
That's awesome. Mike, any last travel or concert opportunities that you're like, oh, thank God, before things got stupid?
I haven't traveled for years.
I miss Atlanta. Don't you miss Atlanta? I was there a lot more than you.
Humid.
Hilarious. I understand, guys. I'm happy to talk for another 7 hours because normally. I was gonna say, and also, I know it's like dinner time. I'm making you guys miss dinner time probably. So thank you so much.
My kids are in bed.
There you go. Well, you got to get up early.
4:30, like an elderly man should.
That's true. Exactly. Early bird.
Did we miss any good questions? Did we miss any solid? When is Ginny Hex back? Ginny Hex has a one shot coming out from our friend Mags, and it is really. And Gleb, it is really, really good. I can't wait for you to see it. It's a one-shot Ginny Hex created by myself and Nick Darrington in the pages of Batman Universe. So we're thrilled to see her get the light of day.
Any plans, Brian, to write a Wonder Woman story?
Yes, but I'm not taking over Wonder Woman. That's kind of those trick questions from I know there's some there's a little speculation on what I'm taking next, and some people think it's Wonder Woman. It's not. But yes, I like writing Wonder Woman. And for those who want to check out last issue of Young Justice was almost a spotlight on Cassie Sandsmark, kind of setting up a new status quo for her that separates her from the other Pantheon characters a little bit. We're pretty excited about that. So check it out if you want.
Okay. What are the main factors one should consider to pitch a story in 2 minutes? Does it come naturally during your first story pitch?
I am a bad story pitcher. I always have been. I will tell you that I've learned some interesting lessons over the years. I try to apply them. When you're pitching a story to someone, all they're thinking is, can I make money off of this? That's all they're thinking is, am I going to get fired if I publish this? So what they want to hear from you is the magic words that's gonna say, okay, yeah, well, this is worth making. Okay. Oh, it's Star Wars meets Lord of the Rings. All right, I'm in. What? All right, now you're talking my language, and particularly in this environment, people are getting fired for no reason whatsoever. They're just getting let go for numbers and yeah, and a lot of our friends are. So everyone's a little fearful, but that's the time to get a little ballsy. All right. The person that, yes, some people being ballsy are going to fall on their ass a little bit, but the person being ballsy is also going to be the next person that creates the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in this environment. There's going to be someone who captures the exact moment of that, a character that embodies our stress and our excitement for the future all at once and takes us forward. And that can only be done in a fearless way. So when you're pitching to that person, no, they're living in fear. So you have to be fearless, but you're pitching to someone living in fear. And I'm not saying that as a derogatory. It's just honest. It's just if someone's an editor at a publishing house right now, they don't know what to do, right? So you pitch your thing and make it sound like they say, "Oh, that's what I was missing. That's the piece that's what'll get me to the big office," and see it from their perspective, right? And sometimes the answer is it's a very personal story, and I'm the only one that can tell it. And they get very charmed, and they feel that your truth matches their truth, and it gets you there. So you don't have to like oversell what it is. You sell it for what it is, but do see it through their eyes.
Mike, any thoughts on that in terms of pitching? I have something pithy that I've always gotten.
Go ahead.
It's just the industry is tough right now. I'm biased because I lean towards creator-owned stuff. The sense of control, like even if this stuff wasn't going on right now, there's just like, it's up to you to make it or break it. I don't know what publishers are looking for right now. I don't know how to pitch something. I don't have the best advice right now.
Well, and I would say, especially my years in sports radio, I always loved the athletes that said, and it's an axiom that I continue to pursue: luck is when opportunity meets preparation.
Absolutely.
And and it really does. It's like, and believe me, again, this year and through the good graces of the League of Word Balloon listeners, I have lived this because I was facing just what Brian described. Got downsized. They loved me, but it was numbers. And I'm like, all right, I can try to get another radio job that I'm like, or I really believe in Word Balloon. And again, it's because of the good graces of my listeners and also people like yourselves that will waste 2 hours talking to me as we've done tonight.
Absolutely. Dude, you have no idea how therapeutic this is for me. Me and Mike get together and stare at each other. I love this man so much. It's lovely to talk to you guys.
We talk shit about you all the time. We really do.
Shit about you all the time.
And real quick, before we go, let's thank Mark Nathan, Baltimore Comic-Con. Mark,
do it.
Me up with my first, when I was doing the first time I did Baltimore Comic-Con, I think it was the first year. It was the first year that Powers came out, and I had my very first line ever at a con at Baltimore Comic-Con. So thank you, Mark.
Yes, thank you. And we're saying thank you because this is the man comics as long as we have, and he has wrestled through every single struggling thing that's happened to the East Coast. It was worded to us for
fucking 9/11 and
9/11 and Sandy to like everything, and he's been able to keep this. And also Baltimore Comic-Con is a big one for our family. My wife's from Baltimore, Sabatino's. And so we were grateful we were able to put this show together, which I heard from other creators felt a lot like Baltimore Comic-Con in the virtual space, which is kind of cool because that's a very unique energy. So that's cool. Well,
that was our hope, man. And again, we appreciate Mark and Randy Tischer for giving us that opportunity to work with them, put this show on.
Jim McLaughlin works his ass off.
Absolutely. God, yes.
Refuses to take any kind of acknowledgement, but he's been working all weekend long, and God bless.
And let's put up the heroinitiative.org because, as I always like to point out, doing these online conventions, 80% of their fundraising happened at live shows. Well, obviously, live shows aren't happening right now. That's one of the main reasons why Mainframe Comic Con started doing our independent shows. It gave us the opportunity to do more with Hero and Baltimore, with the Drink and Draw and a few other sponsored events that we have through Hero. And we thank Jim very much for his involvement. I thank my cohorts and the creators of Mainframe. I came in late in the game. This is our fourth event. I only came in on event number 3, but my guys, Chuck Lindsay and Chad Raspin, for creating Mainframe. And all I can say is we're not done. I mean, we're going to take a little time off, but you'll see more events virtually through the good graces of Mainframe Comic Con. So we thank you all for paying attention and enjoying our content. And guys, we'll wrap up, and I'll say thank you for 15 years of Word Balloon being associated with you guys, and the cameos that you guys have put me in your creator-owned books, and including Powers, and also in the No Life section of Powers was always greatly appreciated, because it's truly how I was able to gather a good early portion of my audience, and I thank you both for that.
Amazing. For those of you who asked questions that we did not get to, please tweet them at us and we will get to them, get them answered. They were not being blown off for any way. Some things were flying by before I could even get to them. John, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
You're the best. And also, this is it. You're done for the weekend, right? This was your.
Yeah, no, we're turning off the lights. Absolutely.
So you did an amazing job, man. Thank you so much.
Always amazing work, dude.
Well, you guys are really kind. It was all adrenaline because of making it easy, because of you guys being my friends all, and again, the great panels that everyone did. So thank you guys. Be well.
Also, there's a lot of people saying some very sweet things. Thank you very much. I'm feeling your very nice energy over there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Absolutely, man. No, very cool. And I'm doing these, and everyone is saying absolutely stay safe. Yes, it is indeed. It's a good way to go out. Oh, thanks, man. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that, and everyone else that said really kind things about what I do in the chat. Really, greatly appreciated, guys, and really good comments. All right, everybody, stay safe, stay happy.
See you on the Twitter.
Stay healthy, and if you missed any panels, BaltimoreComicConLive.com. They will live there, and we're also going to be chopping up the streams into individual shows. So keep all that in mind.
And what are the highlights? You got recently you had Walt Simonson. That was a big one.
Yeah, Dean Haskell had Walt, Howard Chaykin, Bill Sienkiewicz and Dennis Cowan talking. We had you and Jerry Conway talking. We had Dave Gibbons and Tom King in conversation today.
Do you think I annoyed Jerry? Do you think I annoyed him?
No, quite. No, honestly. I know it was a thrill for both of you. Seriously, it was
Jerry. A thrill for me. I don't know if it was a thrill for him, but
no, he's like, oh no, I really enjoyed talking to Brian. So no, I already got feedback and everything.
Okay, good.
So, absolutely,
it was so on the edge of Chris Farley dumb. I was good for like a half an hour, and then as soon as we hit Justice League 200, but that was a great tangent, and that's exactly the kind of thing I hope for Word Balloon and what Mainframe hopes for with these panels. So there you go. All right, Mike, we're going to talk for the next After Realm with you and Talk, obviously. Sure. Absolutely. All right, boobies. Always good. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Yes, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.